Our last speaker today needs no introduction. On October 3rd, 2016, at a federal environment minister meeting in Montreal, when all of the provincial ministers had gathered in good faith to discuss collaboration and efforts on environmental policies, as talks were about to get underway, these ministers were informed. No, they weren't informed, they were ambushed. All of these ministers and provinces were ambushed by the federal government and told from up on high, an edict from somewhere else, an ultimatum, that we were all getting a federal carbon tax or else. It didn't matter if we were leaders on carbon sequestration or if we had made in Saskatchewan solutions that were actually creating positive change. Pay this tax or else. Well, one environment minister got up and walked out. One environment minister called it out for what it was. It was underhanded and sneaky, and a federal government changing the rules midstream. Doesn't sound familiar, does it? Well, I'm proud to say that environment minister is still fighting for us as our premier of this great province now that we call home. He's going to keep fighting for us day in and day out. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please, for our premier, Scott Moe.
Well, thank you, Dan, and thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. Good afternoon to the largest truck convoy ever in the history of the world. And let me say to the rest of Canada, welcome to the silent majority. What an absolutely great turnout. What an incredible turnout. I want to start just with a couple of thank yous because today doesn't happen without a lot of hard work from a whole number of different people. And I want to start with the Regina Police Service, the RCMP, our first responders, for getting you all here safe. And I want to thank the organizers of today's event. We are very indebted to the effort that you've made over the course of the last number of weeks and a few of the lumps that a few of you have taken along the way. Thank you. And I want to thank our sponsors, but I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here today. You could be anywhere today, but you chose to be here to make sure that your voice is heard in this great nation of ours. This convoy, your convoy, it's converged here in our province's capital city, but it's came from all across our great province, from virtually every sector in our economy. We have trucks here from the energy sector. We have trucks here from agriculture, from mining, from manufacturing. You're all here from all parts of our economy today, and the fact that you are here tells me something about your values. It tells me something about your character. It tells me something about your families, your co-workers, and the communities that you live in. It tells me that you care about the future of this province and you care about the future of this great nation that we all live in. And today, we, all of us together, we're sending a message that can be heard from coast to coast to coast, a message that is as clear as a prairie sky, and it's a message directly to the Prime Minister of this nation. It's time that we came together to defend our world-class resource industries, the industries that create wealth, they create hope, and they create opportunity all across Canada. It's time for us to work together to bring down the barriers that are the barriers to responsible resource development and the thousands of jobs that we all know come with that responsible resource development. It's time for us to roll back the destructive carbon tax that will do nothing to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, a carbon tax that will do nothing but kill jobs and drive investment out of our province and out of our communities. My friends, It's time to get our great province of Saskatchewan working again. It's time for us to work together to get our great nation of Canada working again. And we will get Canada working again because there's another convoy that's on the horizon. And I'm proud to say that that convoy has been led by your great province, the province of Saskatchewan, and for the longest time, ladies and gentlemen, we were the only rig on the road. Saskatchewan was the only province that had stepped out and was opposing this federal carbon tax. And I want to personally thank you for all of the support that you have lent, and through you to all of the people in your communities, all of the support that you have offered to myself and the guy that sat in my chair before I had the opportunity, Brad Wall. We say thank you to each of you for the support that you've given us. One year ago, it was Saskatchewan alone. Now, it's Saskatchewan and New Brunswick and Ontario and Manitoba. And very shortly, it may be Alberta. That will be 5 provinces representing 60% of the population of our great nation, the population of Canada, that will oppose this federal carbon tax. And yesterday, I'm sure many of you saw the news, Manitoba has launched another legal challenge against this federal carbon tax. It was announced that the Premier Pallister from Manitoba had tweeted this out shortly after this was announced. He said, "The federal carbon tax threatens jobs and economic growth in Manitoba. It makes it more expensive to feed our families and to keep them warm during the winter. It hurts northern Manitobans, it hurts our agricultural industry and our transportation sector." Well, let me tell you, what's true for Manitoba is true for Saskatchewan, and it's true right across Canada. And we welcome Manitoba as an ally in the courts. We welcome them, and folks, we have heard of our Prime Minister talking many times. He talks a lot about supporting our middle class. He talks a lot about supporting the importance of a growing economy, and we've all heard how the environment and the economy go hand in hand. Well, here's what we need in this province to be successful. We need market access for our products. 2, we need the ability to get our goods to market by road, by rail, by pipeline. And 3, we need a tax and regulatory structure that allows us to compete with our competitors around the world. If we get those 3 things, we are successful in this province. But then we stand back and we look at what our Liberal government in Ottawa is delivering to us today. Not helpful on 1, 2, or 3. What they are delivering is Bill C-48, the No More Tankers bill. What they are delivering is Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines bill. We have pipelines projects across this nation that are stalled. Pipelines are not getting built. And we have a federal government that, in addition to that, is delivering us with a federally imposed carbon tax. We look at these policies and you just try to tell me that this is a federal government that supports working people in this country. You try to convince me that they care about what happens to you, what happens to your family, or what happens to your community, or what happens to your job in the industry that you work in. Now, just before I go on, I want to mention one other individual that hasn't joined us here today. The leader of the official opposition in Saskatchewan, the Saskatchewan NDP leader, Ryan Miley's not here today.
Where's Ryan?
And as you heard this past week, the NDP leader decided not to come today because he thinks this rally is motivated by anti-immigrant sentiments. Of course, we all know that's nonsense. This rally is motivated by policy decisions that have been made by our federal government that restrict the growth of our province. They restrict the growth of our economy. They restrict the growth of our jobs in our communities that we all live in. And they restrict the growth of our population in those communities. The Saskatchewan that we know and we love and the communities across our province, we have welcomed thousands of newcomers to our communities to live, to work, to raise their families. And in the last decade, we have actually welcomed into this province 165,000 people. That's almost the size of our capital city. Another Regina in the province. That's the growth that we've experienced. Of 165,000 people, 123,000 of them came from other areas of the world, from outside our nation. 123,000 people from 180 countries who have settled now in our province in over 430 communities. They're your neighbor and they're mine. And they've moved here because of the opportunity, because there's hope, and because there's a job. They've moved here to build a career, to create a business or to raise their family and to contribute to this province that we love. And we are grateful that they chose this province of Saskatchewan. But ladies and gentlemen, as we know, none of this is why the NDP leader is not attending here today. And I think we can all agree on this. The real reason that Mr. Miley is not here today is because he actually supports a Trudeau carbon tax. The real reason he's not here today is because he actually opposes the construction of pipelines. And the real reason he's not here today is because he has absolutely no interest in hearing from anyone, from any of you, who don't share his point of view. It's pretty clear to me that the NDP does not support you. Why on earth would any of you ever support them? Meanwhile, in Ottawa, we have a federal government that is displaying its own kind of contempt. If the federal government actually generally wanted and was concerned and wanted to support our workers in Saskatchewan and in Western Canada and across the nation, it would kill Bill C-69 immediately. There's no better example, to my knowledge, of any anti-worker legislation in this country than that bill, Bill C-69. The No More Pipelines bill, as it's been dubbed. The No More Potash mine bill, I would add to that. The No More Uranium mine bill, I would add to that. The No More Industry in Saskatchewan bill, I would add to that. In Canada, we already have one of the most stringent environmental review processes in the world. This is a process that we can be so proud of. Billions of dollars are spent by private industry, surprise, each and every year, ensuring that our projects are in compliance with environmental laws. What country in the world, you tell me this, what country in the world has a more stringent environmental process? Do the countries that deliver oil by tanker to Eastern Canada, to Eastern Canadian ports, have a stronger environmental law than we do in Western Canada? I think not. Does Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Venezuela, or Iraq, do they care more about the environment than we do here in Western Canada? My friends, we don't need a major overhaul of our Canadian environmental process. What we need is an environmental review process that works for you and works for all Canadians. What we are getting is Bill C-69, which essentially, by the way, killed Energy East. And now we all know Energy East, the value to us here in Saskatchewan, but it's also a nation-building project. In every respect, it most certainly is. It's a project that would create jobs in virtually every province in the nation of Canada. A project that would displace oil coming from these countries that I mentioned that have such lower environmental rigor laws in their respective countries. And the Liberal government has said no to Energy East. Just like they said no to the Northern Gateway pipeline with Bill C-48, the oil tanker ban. Here's the consequence of continuing to say no. When you say no often enough, people start to get the message. Investors get the message. They understand that they just aren't welcome there. And as we know, in our industries, capital is very mobile, and it's moving south in many cases. We have billions of dollars now that is moving into North Dakota, it's moving into Texas, and it's moving into New Mexico. Here in Canada, we have the third largest proven oil reserves in the world. It's clean, it's sustainably produced energy, yet we don't have and we don't get world prices for our energy because we just simply can't build a pipeline across this great nation of ours. We lose billions of dollars each and every year, and I would say not only in this province, but everyone in Canada is shortchanged by that fact. I say everyone in Canada because the resource sector that we participate in, the resource sector in this country, pays billions of dollars in royalties and taxes. Those dollars support the quality of life that we have in this province and support the quality of life that we have across the nation. Those dollars build hospitals, they build highways, they build schools, they build long-term care centers for our families. These are the infrastructure and services that these resource industries support in Saskatchewan, across Canada. And today, because of the challenges that we have, it is so much more difficult for us to contribute to the nation. And we are a proud contributor. But through these investments, we contribute. Through equalization, we contribute. Because our resource sector, we're contributing less because our resource sector, and as a matter of fact, all of our sectors, are under attack. They're under attack from a federal government that has introduced Bill C-69, Bill C-48. We have tougher federal methane regulations that we're working towards. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have, as of last week, a carbon tax in our province. A carbon tax that was described by many of your MLA, the member for Weyburn, our Environment Minister, the Honourable Dustin Duncan, and I quote, "A Justin Trudeau, Ralph Goodale, Liberal Party of Canada, job-killing, soul-sucking, unconstitutional, supported by the Saskatchewan NDP carbon tax." It's rather catchy, isn't it? Rather accurate as well. But don't get me wrong, in Saskatchewan, we accept that climate change is happening, and we even accept that humans are contributing to that. What we don't accept is that a carbon tax is in any way an effective tool to actually deal with that. What we don't accept is the federal government imposing this on our industries and our provinces and our families across the nation, in particular across this province that I have the honor of representing. The federal government's actual own research says that this isn't going to work in our province of Saskatchewan, and that shouldn't be a surprise because it actually hasn't worked anywhere else where it has been introduced. It certainly hasn't worked in British Columbia, where they've had it now for over a decade. Their emissions continue to rise. A carbon tax, quite simply, is the wrong policy for a jurisdiction like ours, with an export-oriented, energy-intensive economy that we participate in. It's the wrong policy, quite frankly, for Canada. A one-size-fits-all destructive carbon tax hurts workers, it hurts businesses, and it hurts families from coast to coast to coast in this nation. But there's good news in all of this. Surprised you with that, didn't I? There's a better way. There's another path for us to follow. It's the path that we have been on in this province. Our government has recently released our climate change strategy. It's called the Prairie Resilience, a plan that recognizes the reality of our province and recognizes the reality of the industries that operate in our province, and it actually reduces emissions in our province, unlike a carbon tax. The difference between the two is that our Prairie Resilience strategy was actually designed alongside industry. We worked with industry to ensure that we could achieve what is possible. And we want to continue to encourage our Saskatchewan industries to find innovative solutions, and there's a key word, innovation, to ensure that we continue to do better for that next generation. We all have kids, and we all care. For example, our Sask Power Company is expanding their renewable capacity. We're moving to 50% renewables of our generating capacity by the year 2030. We've invested more than $1 billion in a world-leading carbon capture project at Boundary Dam 3 near Estevan. And Saskatchewan actually, and I've participated in these conversations, yes, is that we are a global leader when it comes to carbon capture and storage. In the last 5 years alone, here's the opportunity. Here's the opportunity that we have as a world moving forward with carbon capture. In the last 5 years alone, China has added 191,000 megawatts of coal-fired power generation, just coal-fired. That's about 150% what Canada does each and every year total. All new, all coal. And that's just in China. Today, there are 1,600 new coal-fired power plants that are being built or planned around the world. Imagine the possibility for emissions reductions with innovation like carbon capture and storage. The work that we have done in Estevan at Boundary Dam 3, and I say we collectively as a province, will have more impact on greenhouse gas emissions than a federal carbon tax could ever actually hope to have. The innovation in carbon capture and storage needs to be recognized. The federal government should also recognize the contribution of the clean, sustainable nuclear power industry around the world that is supplied with Saskatchewan uranium. It should acknowledge the work, the great work that is done in our agriculture industry. The role of our farmers and ranchers, our researchers, and our equipment manufacturers have played in reducing global emissions is tremendously valuable and not talked about enough. Not only are we carbon neutral in our crop agriculture in this province, and no one else in the world can actually make that statement but this province. We manufacture and we export now air drills all around the world. And I think of Bourgault, I think of Seedhawk and Seedmaster, and I think of Morris, and I think of Pillar Laser Works, and I probably missed some, but there's more. We export those to places like Russia and Kazakhstan and the United States where they're actually using that technology, that innovation that was developed by you in this room and us in this province to reduce carbon emissions in those faraway places. And of course, we use those air drills right here in Saskatchewan. We're going to use a bunch of them here in just a week or two. Zero-till, combined with the huge increase in pulse crops, has actually helped turn Saskatchewan soils into an enormous carbon sink over just the course of the last 20 or 25 years. New technology continues to cut our greenhouse gas emissions by many millions of tons each year. For example, also in agriculture, many of you in this room that showed up in a truck today, you drove a diesel engine to get here. Well, tractors, trucks that you drive today, as we all know, are so much more efficient than they were just a few years ago, and this needs to be acknowledged as well as we move forward by our federal government. Ladies and gentlemen, let me close with this. We continue in this nation to have the wrong conversation. We need to change the conversation. We need to shift our focus away from an ineffective carbon tax towards innovation and technology and what research and science can do for us. In Saskatchewan, we've already done that. We're already making a difference in all of these areas, in all of our industries. In Saskatchewan, we are actually making a difference in the fields. We're making a difference in the research labs. We're making the difference at the bottom of our mine shafts, at the top of our oil derricks, and we're making a difference on the highway each and every time we drive one of those trucks down it. Saskatchewan is making a difference across this nation by leading the opposition to a federal carbon tax. And very soon, we are going to hear about the difference that will be made in a courtroom. And after we hear from that courtroom, we will see something totally different in Ottawa. We will look for a government that supports our Saskatchewan energy industry. We will look for a government that supports our Saskatchewan agriculture industry. We will look for a government that supports our Saskatchewan mining and manufacturing industries, a government whose first priority, whose singular objective is to get our province and get our nation working again. We look forward to that day. Let me tell you, it can't come soon enough. Thank you.